Hello and welcome to today's video in which we're talking about reasons why people are not being able to change or transform, and they rather do things with discipline, with force, with motivation, until at one point they're kind of burning out, things go down, they fall back where they were, situations get more difficult over time. And this is what I call threshold. Threshold because it is something that you need to pass to become a different person and therefore experiencing a different life with different results. Because that is actually what change and transformation really is. The thing is just that in school, from friends, from parents, we are being taught that things work in a certain way, which is just not true. It's just not the best way, the way we learn it. And that is why so many people are struggling with amazing lives, with creating an amazing life, with success, with beautiful relationships, with emotional intelligence, regulation, and why lives or circumstances or problems are repeating itself over and over again. The same problems with money, with relationships, with addictions, with all kind of things. And it all comes down to threshold, because we never learned about it and we don't understand that change and transformation is actually a death and rebirth process. And to be able to die, you need to be ready to die. It's not just that what we think it is, we think death is death. We think it's a physical death, so you're going to die and that's it. But death has actually many layers. There are many, many layers to it. And if you zoom out, if you understand or look at life from a higher perspective, then you can see that death is actually not just one thing that we think it is. It has many, many different facets. And if you understand one, you can understand all of it. And if you understand all of it, it's pretty interesting, because then you are able to die, being reborn into a new character that just approaches life in a completely new way. And this is what transformation is. Suddenly, you are not a caterpillar anymore. Suddenly, you are a butterfly. Suddenly, you are not limited on the ground. Suddenly, you can fly. And imagine that. This is a big difference, right? If you fly, you see things totally different. You get different perspectives on things. You get faster from A to B, etc. Just think about what kind of a different life the butterfly is living. And all because it's transformed. The old self, the caterpillar, doesn't exist anymore. It's dead. The new one has been reborn. It's the same actually with us. Or for example, all my life I heard from people, I want to be rich. I want to become a millionaire. But nobody wants to really do what a millionaire is doing. But it's not, and now it's important to understand, it's not about building a business, going out, doing the calls, doing the things. It's more about first changing yourself. Because only if you are a millionaire first, you will be able to do the things a millionaire is doing. If you are not changing yourself first, you are trying to do the things, but at one point you will see resistance, fears, demotivation. You burn out, you don't have energy, because you're using systems in your body which are limited for your achievements in physical reality. And that is actually a problem. That's why it doesn't work. The idea is to use the systems like discipline, like motivation, to change yourself, to die, to be reborn into a new identity, and then do the things naturally. So you don't need to force yourself. You wake up and you just want to do the things. And this works with everything like that, It works with your body, with health, with relationships, with just everything that you can dream about. You need to first become it. The same, by the way, if you want to do something creative. Why? Because thoughts, for example, are not just kind of things in your brain. Thoughts are living entities. They're like viruses. And what are they doing? What are the characteristics? The characteristic is they're looking for the right host, somewhere where the thought or the virus can be alive. And if you are you, and you get a certain thought now that you are not ready for, what would you do with it? You would not believe it, you would forget it, you would not act on it, it would just be wasted. That's why you don't get certain things. And that's why so many people think, but I cannot do it because I don't know, I'm not creative, I don't have thoughts. No. You are not the person for what you want to receive. That's what needs to be changed first. And when it comes to depression, which is kind of a forced change of the character, we have the same thing. People are in depression for many years because they are not at the threshold yet. There's something missing out. And if you are not ready to die, ready to release your energy, being pressed into a new identity, you will not be able to change. No matter what you do, you can go to therapy, you can do psychedelics, you can do somatic work, you can do all kinds of things. But it all comes down to change and transformation. The difference is you can do it because you choose it, or you do it because you're kind of forced to it. And this is what you feel in or with depression, being depressed, being released into a new character. So to understand this concept further, let's talk about time first. So we get like a basic understanding of time and what I mean with death and rebirth, because as I mentioned, there's not just this one death where we think after it's all over. There are like deaths all the time, because reality, your whole life is a death and rebirth process. Kind of every second, something is dying, something is being reborn. It's just a natural thing. We just intellectualize it, or we limited ourselves so much that we just don't get it anymore. But actually, it's pretty simple to understand. And for that, it helps to understand the concept of time first. Because think about it. If you look at this drawing here, you might get an idea what this could be. So these are frames, okay? It's like the movies. Some of you will recognize it from the past, before the digital world, where we had like kind of a frame, another frame, and in the movies, those frames are being like put, and they're like kind of moving through the projector, and we see what is on each frame. And the more frames we have, the more fluid things work, right? And the same concept that we use to create movies is how we created life or reality. So everything is a frame, and in the frame you have just all kind of things, all settings, the things you see, the things you feel, the things you think. It's just everything in one frame. And what happens in time is you are jumping from frame to frame to frame to frame. And usually these frames are so close to each other that you don't see that you're jumping to frame. It seems like it's like an ongoing, continuous process. It looks like it's something linear, but actually it's not. Actually, you're jumping. And if you're jumping from frame to frame to frame to frame, then why would you not be able to jump into a different set of frames? And if you jump into a different set of frames, then something has changed. And this is actually change and transformation. To go to a different frame and experience kind of a new life, which means that you also experience a new past, because it's a new line of time. It's a new timeline. So you are in one, you change something, and suddenly you are in a different one. And you think, okay, if I change something in my life, I only change now and the future. But this is not true, because if you think about that everything exists at the same time, and you're changing one thing, you're changing kind of everything, which means you're changing past, present, and future with your changes. That is why you 100% can change your past. You're not the past self anymore. And now you could say, yeah, okay, but I changed my diet. I became an athlete. And now I'm still getting the thoughts for like pizza cravings. But if you're getting these thoughts of pizza cravings, you don't get them because you ate it in your past. You're getting them because you're remembering the timeline before. You're remembering what was here. because technically you can remember everything. And now it's important to understand that if you transform, like if you become a new person, you are kind of changing your past, which means that your past before now doesn't exist anymore. It's not your path, which means that you died. You are dead. You are not the same. There is no you anymore. You is now here. This is your new version. This is your new life. And usually, even if you change, the timelines look very similar, right? I don't know, you have the same face, you're the same height, you have the same friends, da, da, da. But sometimes you're changing so much that suddenly everything around you changes. Like everything. Like you go to a store, something has changed, something has moved, or you just, I don't know, your body is kind of completely different. Maybe suddenly you don't have certain diseases anymore, or like pains in your body or things like that. Or suddenly you have new friends, you meet new people, new characters around you. It's just everything is new. Everything is new. And this is if when you change far away from your base reality. So you have the powers to jump as far as you want, which means that you can jump into a version of you that is already an athlete, for example. Because the other version maybe struggled with it, or maybe didn't want to do sports, was not motivated, was maybe even addicted to food or stuff like that. And at one point, you decided to jump into a timeline that is much further away. It's not just close, it's a big change and transformation. And in this timeline, maybe things also happen outside. Suddenly, a gym opens up close to you. That is perfect for you. The teachers are amazing. You have a great connection, Things happen in that way. And in this new timeline, then, of course, again, you have a new past. And you just think different. Everything changes, your base beliefs even change. And it's not just that you, for example, want to do sports now. You just wake up and you feel you want to move. You feel you want to eat healthy. Maybe you stop having cravings. But even the thoughts, for example, people think they save the best part of the food for the end. But that's what a fat person does. An athlete doesn't think like that. An athlete thinks, okay, I have my food there, but I listen to my body. And when my body tells me I'm done, I'm done. Which means that the best part, if I save it to the end, I need to force myself to eat everything. And this just makes no sense, right? It's kind of a ridiculous thought. That's a thought of a fat person's timeline. But if you jump into an athlete's timeline, where you have always been one, you stop thinking these thoughts. So things just change. And all of that, all of these jumps are deaths. It can be small ones, small changes, but it can be big changes. You can do small jumps, you can be big jumps. It's also a skill set. You can technically travel into different timelines, change your past. And if you do that, again, you don't need to use discipline and motivation now to do something else because you changed who you are. The one who you were before is not there anymore. But again, you maybe go up and remember stuff. So I call these echoes. They tell you, maybe you remember the pizza and then this and that, but it's not you. But you have access to it. The way like you could have access to a complete different other timeline further away to get certain insights, certain wisdom, certain informations. And that's actually what a genius can do. Which means if you see that concept and understand that concept, that you are a genius. The difference is, do you decide that you are one, or do you rather stay in your limited timeline where you're not one and everything is different and everything is hard and you need to make money and it's so hard to be creative and everything is so hard, you get sick and all of these limitations. It's your decision at the end. And if we now look at these frames, you may come up with a certain question. And the question could be, what decides what the next frame is? Like you are in a frame right now, in this moment. What decides your next frame? What is it that decides who you meet, what happens, what you hear, what you see in TV, what you hear in the radio, what music you listen to, what ideas you get? What is it that even makes this frame? So first, our frames are already there. So you don't make a frame. You don't create a frame. It's all there. What you're doing is you're choosing the frames. And how do you choose the frames? You're choosing the frames basically with these 3 points. You're choosing the next frame with your thoughts. You're choosing the next frame with your beliefs, and you're choosing it with your energy. That is how you navigate through time and timelines. It's your thoughts, your beliefs, and your energy. And if you understand that and you want to go through a different timeline, you want to create transformation where things are different, where you don't have to work for money, where you don't need to suffer, where you don't get sick anymore, maybe even where you heal, maybe where you find your dream partner, then you do that on this level here, on that layer. You're doing it with your thoughts, beliefs, and your energy. But this is exactly the point that makes it so hard. Because now your mind would maybe tell you all of that is not true. All of that is just kind of BS. It's just some guy talking about it. I don't know what he's saying. How does this even make sense? Maybe he's crazy. Okay, if that's the case, then you're not at threshold. This means you don't have the chance to do this work. You don't meet the requirements to do that. So basically what's happening is you are kind of in the prison of your mind. That's where you are. And that is why these concepts don't work. And that is why life may be so difficult. So what's actually happening then is that your mind, your ego, it's the part of you that has one function here. And the function is to give you a tool to experience material reality, physical reality. That's the job of this one. And this is not who you are. It is what you have. It's one part of you. It's like thoughts. You are not your thoughts, right? You have thoughts. It's your body. Are you a body, or do you have a body? So we have certain things. So we are actually pretty multidimensional. We have a lot of different kind of things, and we are a lot of different kind of things. And if you understand these mechanics, then you can now think of, okay, what is this ego, the thing that helps you to go through this? What is it made for? Actually, the ego has multiple purposes. So one purpose is to keep you alive. And that's what you realize, for example, if you want to cross the street, you look to left, you look to the right, you see no cars, you can cross the street, everything is safe. So your ego in the moment is telling you you can cross the street, no problem. If there's a car and you cross the street anyway, then what might be the worst case that could happen? The worst case would be that you're gone, right? Which then means that your ego is so important that if it is wrong, you're probably going to die. So it needs to be right to protect you. So your ego is made up in a way that thinks that whatever you think is correct, is right. So it helps you to survive and navigate through this whole thing here. But then there's another part of the ego that is really important. And the part for the ego is that it can create hell, which most of us are in right now at the moment, because hell and heaven doesn't happen after something, after life, after in a different place. It happens just right now. Earth is heaven or hell, depending on your decision, what you decide. So the ego helps you actually to get to hell. And you may ask yourself, okay, but why would I want to go to hell? I mean, what else do you have to do? Think about it. Think about you're everything, you have everything, whatever you want, just by that. At one point, what are you doing? There's nothing else to do. So you want to create kind of limitations. And you can create a lot of limitations, which means that you're kind of going down a stairway into what we are calling hell, a place full of limitations, which is very difficult, which gives us actually unique opportunities to learn about ourselves, to grow, become stronger, and see life from a perspective that we could never do without hell. And if you heard about frequencies, vibration, then you're pretty aware about high frequencies, low frequencies, and like high frequencies are connected to higher emotions like joy, like gratefulness, like peace. And lower frequencies are connected more to like shame, anger, fear, and those kind of things, right? And this is what I want to show you at this point, because usually when you look at the frequency scale, then you see the high frequencies are up, but actually it's turned around. So basically the low frequencies are up and the high frequencies are down here. Like many things in our reality, it's just turned around. It's like a pole shift happened. And I showed you in this way because if you look at it in that way, then you would see kind of yourself here, which means hell is the plane where the frequencies are very slow, very dense, where life gets very hard. And what is hell here? Hell is basically ego. But how do you get to hell? You get to hell if you give the ego the power, which means rationality or hyper rationality. And that is why we see so many times kind of a cross. What do you think a cross could mean? It cuts you off. It cuts you off from heaven. So you go and give this your power, and that is when you experience hell and limitation. Nothing is real. You need to wait for science to allow you to do certain things. And if science doesn't allow you, then you kind of are the victim of science. You're a victim of everything, and you cannot do stuff because this and this and this and this and this. So it's the highest form of limitation, which is not bad at all. So it's important to not kind of judge this thing. It's an amazing, beautiful thing that we have created. It's just important to know what it is and how it works in case you want something different. And many nowadays in this year and age are ready to go back to higher frequencies, or in other words, to go back to heaven and live their dream that they are currently dreaming in a different perspective, not in a perspective of being a victim anymore. Look what happened to me. This and this happened against me, and they did this to me, and da-da-da-da. And also not of survival, not of war, fighting, being better than others, getting status, wearing the mask, and turning yourself in a certain way. These are just dream types that we are dreaming in these low frequencies, and many are right now in a phase, they can feel it. It's the depression where they are being pulled into higher frequencies back, and that's why we don't have energy, or we feel like we don't have energy and motivation. We don't even want to get out of bed. We don't want to do nothing because the energy has been incubated out into the different place. Like I call it the void, before it comes into here, into a new timeline, into a new version of you, into a new personality, which then creates your new personal reality, which is not based again on victimization, survival, and war anymore, but rather on other dream types, which we can talk about in a different video. Okay, let's get back to the question but then why don't people change? Why is it so hard? They come to work with me personally, but somehow they just don't make the jump. They don't make the jump. Why is that? Again, these people are usually people who are living hyper-rational and are in this jail here. And if you're in this jail, the thing is that it works kind of against you in a way that it worked for you, but now it works against you, which means it doesn't let you out because you think your thoughts are correct. And you try to solve your problem, get out of it by working kind of inside of it. So you want to work here inside of it, but to get a solution, to find peace, to not be anxious anymore, to find your passion, your purpose, your talents, your gifts. But this doesn't work, because if you work inside of this, you work inside of the low frequency, which means no matter what you do in hell, you are staying in hell. You cannot solve the problem from a perspective that created the problem. The problem maker is not the solution maker, but that's what we're trying to do. That's what this here is convincing you to do. It convinces you that you need to do certain things and you need to try this and that, be productive, to change something. So it's another illusion. And what you need to do actually to get out of it, to move into higher vibration, higher emotions, different kind of realities, you need to work outside of it. So you cannot work inside of the thing that created the problem. So you need to overcome yourself, which means that you need to stop believing yourself. You need to understand that this, what you think, is not true. It's not about doing anymore. It's not about being productive anymore. It's not about the next coaching anymore. It's not about the next modality anymore. It's about not doing anymore. It's about following the symptoms that you can feel. Maybe you don't want to meet your friends anymore. Maybe you don't want to do this work anymore. Maybe you don't even want to get out of bed anymore. These are the signals. These are things that are guiding you out of it, because it's your natural process to get back to heaven once you're in hell, because everything in life is a cycle. We go down to hell, but then we go up to heaven before we go back again. It's just a cycle. And you see the signals, but now when you are in hell, you render reality in a way, because reality is just based on what is inside of you. And if you are inside of you in hell, you render it this way. And this means that whatever you see confirms what you think, which means that you think that you know how things are and how you get out of it and what are the strategies. But the reality is you don't know. And you need to understand, you need to stop believing that. And if you stop believing that and you, for example, trust the future, trust the unknown, stop controlling things, which means also you stop judging other people to control certain things. There are many forms of control. Then you will see that you are getting super afraid and things are getting super hard. And it's because your comfort zone that you are in hell and comfort zone. Funny, right? So in hell and comfort zone, you are getting out of it by moving into a new zone, which is the learning zone, which is basically this path here, just before you go up the frequencies, up the ladder, back to where you were before, to heaven. So you're going into the fear zone. This is also a death zone until you are here in your new comfort zone. So this learning zone is kind of a growth and at the same time a death zone, because again, you're moving to a different timeline from that perspective until you are back in heaven. You're living a different dream type where again, you are waking up and you want to be alive. You have things you love. You don't have to work anymore. You don't need to do certain things for others anymore. You don't care about what others think anymore. You don't judge people anymore. You're nice to others. Things just change completely. So you need to even lose your mind, because your mind created the problems. You cannot solve it inside of it. You need to get into that, oh shit, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know what I want anymore. You don't know nothing anymore. That is the path. That is the way. And that is why if I work with people who want to really change, who want to experience reality a different way, whatever their goal is, again, purpose, power, peace, wealth, health, it's all the same. It's all kind of the same pattern, the same frequency pattern. To get there, you need to see if the requirements are given. And the requirements are, you can see them here. I call them signals. First one is faith. Most of us who are in hell don't have faith. They believe in their past. They believe in history, which is a past that they have created for the context to make certain experiences. But it's not a fact. It's an interpretation that you chose to make certain experiences. So they believe in that, then they project it into the future, and that's all they believe in. And then, of course, you have science and stuff like that you created. And if you have that, if you believe only on those things which you think are facts, you don't have faith. You don't believe in other things. And if you don't believe in faith, if you don't have faith, there's no way to break that. There's no way to get out of this box. And if you don't get out of the box, there is no freedom. There's no peace for you. There's just what you are right now. And what you are or have right now is a wish for change, a wish that things are better. And what do you get by that? You get a situation in which you wish that things are different. in which you wish that things are going to get better, it's exactly what you get because you are choosing, again, the frame with that. Look what you are thinking. Then you can see, you can predict basically what is your future. That is actually how future is being predicted, and how even the guys who were able to predict the future long into the future did it. They just look at the patterns, and based on that, because most people cannot change, because this here is so strong, they can kind of see or read the future. That is how it works. So faith is one thing. Another thing is certainty. You need to be sure. You need to understand that all the things that you were afraid of, holding you back, those thoughts, are created by that. And you know you're bigger than that. You're greater than yourself. So you need to be certain that no matter what is coming, it's better than where you are right now, because where you're right now is a place that you cannot leave otherwise. If you try to predict things again, you cannot do it. If you try to be sure, if you want to change or transform, but on your terms, it's not working. You need to be 100% certain that whatever is coming is for you. You need to be 100% certain. So it's connected kind of to faith. And with that, you need to take back responsibility. You need to believe in that everything that you have experienced, everything that you went through in your life has been created 100% by you. You never have been a victim. If you think, no, and you look for reasons, but look, this happened to this one, and this is so cruel, and I would never create something like that, you're gone. You're done. You just cannot change. There's no way. You need to reclaim power, 100% responsibility, and not just asking yourself, why would I do that, and this, and this, and this. Understand, you did it. If you want to know why, okay, that's another topic. But you need to understand you have never been a victim. You thought maybe you were. You thought things happened against you or to you. But you were the one who chose those things, no matter how brutal, hard, or cruel they were. And with those points comes, of course, trust, kind of trust, certainty, faith. They connect with each other, but you need to trust the whole process. If you are skeptical, if you think that there's a way that this would not be that way, you cannot do it. Because again, then what are you creating? What are you creating if you're skeptical? You create exactly an experience like that. Oh, there was this guy, there were these informations, there were these books, there were these gurus, these mentors, who said this is like that. And I tried it, and it was all a fail. I invested money, I invested time, energy, resources, and all was just BS. You can create that story too. It's valid. Look how many we have nowadays. How many do we have? We're going to meditation retreats and stuff like that, and turns out, oh no, it was bad, it didn't work, it was a scam, it was just a cult thing. And okay, that's the thing. If you are skeptic at one single point, if you don't trust 100%, you have a problem. Because whole reality is based on your belief system. And there's no way of being half pregnant. Either you are or you're not. It's the same here. Either you choose it or you don't. But you cannot choose it a bit. You cannot choose it a bit. If you choose it a bit, you can be sure that this mechanic, that this thing here will help you to get back always to your safe place. Always, because what you think is true is true. That's why it doesn't matter what is true. That's why even I or other guys or people don't have answers for you. We have ideas, but you choose your own truth because you are your own timeline, you are your own universe, you are your own reality. It may overlap at some points. Maybe we have some things, of course, that are in common, but all the other things are yours, and you choose you. So with that, the last point, the last requirement, the last signal to see when somebody is ready to go over the threshold is surrender. You need to surrender everything. You need to give up everything. Like there's no way that you can be attached to something and go through a different timeline. It just doesn't work. It can be, your money, it can be your friends, your family, your addictions, anything. You need to just be able to give up everything for the higher good, for your new thing, for your new dream that you want to dream, that you want to experience. You don't know what are the terms. And many people, I've met many people who tell me, I want peace, I want joy, I want to live life again. I want to live a life that's light. I want to live a life that's nice. But I don't want to be in a one-bedroom apartment and broke and not having money and wealth, not being a millionaire anymore. I don't want that. Okay, so you want change on your terms. It's like what the expression in the material reality needs to be for you to feel in a certain way. But then why are you not there? Why are you talking to me? Why are we here now? Maybe you don't know. Maybe it's the jail. Maybe it's the illusion. So you cannot hold on to things. You cannot anchor yourself into certain things. You need to willing to give up everything. 100% surrendering. Be open to the unknown. And that is why these points here are so important. And if you are not having or fulfilling all of them, there's no transformation for you. So that's why at this point, if you really want something, you need to be 100% honest with yourself and see if these points are given. And if not, you have a chance to work on these points before you go into the deeper and highly transformative work. So I hope you learned today something new about transformation, about the requirements, about the threshold. And it's important to understand that nobody can bring you through to the threshold. Only you can bring yourself there. You need to find the reasons why. It's the same like you probably would not wake up in the morning at 4 a.m. just to go out for 5 minutes out of your house. But if the house is burning, probably you would do it, right? So basically, if you see it that way, then you see that the internal resources like motivation and discipline need to be used for that to get to the threshold. And from there, you can work with transformative modalities that help you to go to a different past, present, and future, and then live life kind of effortlessly in a quality that you maybe can only dream of. But most people, again, are using discipline, motivation, and those resources that are not limitless to change stuff, to do things different. And that's when they always fall back, and it's a repetitive cycle. And you can even see that free will is pretty much limited, and life seems to be destined to always be hard and tough and a challenge, instead of just a life that may be playful, enjoyable, that you actually love.